Okay, today we are talking about vertical angles. And vertical angles is part of a much bigger unit, which is vertical angles, complementary angles, and supplementary angles. But today our focus is on vertical angles. And vertical angles are two angles that are formed when two lines intersect, or actually we get four angles. But the two angles that are opposite of each other. So here I've got angle 1, angle 2, angle 3, and angle 4. So these two angles, angle 1 and 3, opposite each other. Angle 2 and 4 are opposite. That's what opposite means. And they are congruent. And what that means is that they are equal to each other. So angle 1 is equal to angle 3. Angle 2 is equal to angle 4. Okay? So they cross at this point we call the vertex, because that is the center of all my angles. All right. So the way we remember, and when we get into more angles, it's important to remember which angle does what, which types of angles, I should say. And vertical angles make a V. So if you notice right here, when we talk about this angle, angle 1, and angle 3, you see how they make V's that meet here in the center at that vertex? And that's what we mean by that they make a V. And they start with V. Vertical angles make a V. All right, it's just a little trick. All right, let's talk about how we can name these angles and what's congruent to what. All right, so when we look at our first figure, we say that angle 1 and angle 3 are opposite of each other. So we know that angle 1, and we just write that with that little angle figure, angle 1 is congruent or equal to angle 3. So these two are equal. I could say angle 1 equals angle 3. I might also name it by its endpoints, and we talked about this in that last lesson, how we can name our angle by the endpoints. And in this one, I'm going to start with one of my endpoints, angle A, if I'm naming this angle right here, EB. You notice how that encircles or encompasses the angle here that I'm talking about, angle 1, angle A, E, B. We always want to put our vertex in this as the center letter. All right, so let's talk about what that means. So angle A, E, B, which is the same thing as angle 1, is congruent, and we can use a little symbol like this to mean congruent. Is congruent to angle C, E, D. Now, I could alternatively call this angle BEA is congruent to DEC. Doesn't matter as long as I start with an endpoint and put my vertex in the center. All right, so angle 2 and angle 4 are congruent because they are opposite angles, opposite vertical angles. So we've got angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. Now I can also name angle 2. I'm naming this angle right here now. Angle A, E, C. I could name it C, E, A, doesn't matter. I'm just going to start with A, E, C. Is congruent to angle B, E, D. Or D, E, B. Wouldn't matter. Either way. Whoops, that's supposed to be a D. Okay. I can also say that angle 2 is equal to angle 4. So a lot of different ways I can describe this, okay? But the important thing to remember is that these opposite angles that are formed when two lines intersect are congruent. They're equal to each other. Okay? So let's look at this next problem. So in the next problem, we have angle MQP and angle NQO. And we're asked to find the value of X. Okay? Well, what we know is that these are vertical angles, which means they're congruent or equal to each other. So I know that this angle, X, is equal to this angle 87. So the value of x is 87. I could also say, in this right here, here's another little thing for you to learn. The measure of angle NQO is equal to, well, if x is 87, then the measure of this angle is 87 degrees. So another little thing for you to learn, this little m in front of the angle means the measure of. Okay? All right, let's look at our next problem. We've got angle JNM and angle ONL. And we need to know what the value of x is. So what types of angles are these? Well, these are vertical angles. And what I know about vertical angles is that they are congruent. So that means that this angle, or angle x plus 5, is equal to this angle, or 45. And now I can simply write that in the equation. Angle x plus 5 is equal to 45. Draw my balance line to solve the equation to find out the value of x. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. Bring down my x. 45 minus 5 is 40. So the value of x is 40. Now that's not the measure of the angle, remember? That's just the value of x. To find out the measure of the angle, which we know it's 45, but just to show how this works, we can put 40 back in place of x. So I've got x plus 5 is the measure of my angle. And I know that x is 40, so 40 plus 5 is 45. So the measure of angle JNM is equal to 45 degrees. So you can find out the value of x, you can find out the measure of your angle. Okay? Let's look at our last one on this page. Again, we're looking at, these are the two angles I'm giving information on. So this angle and this angle. These are opposite angles formed where two lines cross, so they must be vertical angles. And what I know about vertical angles is that they are congruent. And my equation, well, angle ABC is 2x minus 4. And I know it is equal to angle EBD, which is 130. All right, I'm going to solve my two-step equation. Bring down my 2x equals 130 plus 4 is 134. Divide by 2. And I get x equals 67. Now that's the value of x. That is not the measure of the angle. We know the measure of the angle is 130 because these are congruent. But I can put 67 back in place of my x. 2 times 67 minus 4. And 2 times 67 is 134. Minus 4 would give me 130. So the measure of angle ABC equals 130 degrees. And x is 67. All right, let's talk about our next ones. On the inside pages, on your first page, we have angle 5. This one is 5x degrees. This should be, and this one is 45 degrees. Okay. What I know is that these two they're formed where two lines cross. So they are vertical angles. And yes, you have to write this every time. And what I know about vertical angles is that they are congruent. So I'll write my equation. Angle 5x is equal to 45. They are equal to each other. I solve my equation to find my value of x, and x equals 9. And 5 times 9 would indeed give me 45, which is what I know it should be. All right, you're going to continue doing that on the same thing. Just write your equation and solve it to find the value of x. All right, let's look at our next page. Our next page is the same thing. It is just I'm sorry, got distracted. My thing was looking weird. Okay, so I'm given two angles that are vertical angles. So what that means is that I've got this angle ABC and this angle DBF that are vertical angles. That's what it tells me. And the measure of ABC, the measure of one of my angles, is 2x minus 5, and the measure of DBF, or my other angle, is 30. So what I know about vertical angles is that they are congruent, and I can write my equation. So the measure of one of my angles is 2x minus 5. The measure of my other angle is 30. So I solved this equation to find the value of x. That's what we're looking at for. What is the value of x? We add 5 to both sides. 2x equals 35. Divide both sides by 2. And I get x equals 17.5. Okay? All right. If you have any questions, let me know. Continue working on all the rest of this problems in this booklet. And y'all have a great day.